Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. One of the things I want us to continue to do and to think about is the fact that not all ministry occurs within the local church. If you saw the previous podcast, you heard the interview with Beth Tipton from the University of Virginia College at Wise Wesley Foundation. Well, I want to take us in another direction today and share with you the ministry of Koni Purscell. Now, Koni is a church and community worker, and I'll be honest with you, even though I was the person that was in charge of church and community worker ministry in the annual conference, I never got a good grasp on what the church and community worker did. So I decided I would sit down with Koni and let her try to explain what it is that a church and community worker does. So I hope you enjoy this interview. Well, I'm here this morning with Koni Purscell. She is a church and community worker assigned to the Big Stone Gap District. Tell me, Koni, or tell our listeners out there, what is a church and community worker?
Well, the symbol for church and community ministry is the kaleidoscope, and it really is a kaleidoscopic ministry. Church and community workers do a variety of things focused on alleviating the results of poverty, focusing on helping change the systems that allow for poverty, and helping to connect the church with the community and the community with the church.
Okay, so can you give some specific examples of how that's done?
Well, as the church and community worker in the Big Stone Gap District, I serve Lee, Scott, and Wise counties. These are counties that once had a lot of economic viability with coal mining and with logging. A lot of that viability has decreased, and so we have a lot of people that are really struggling. We address this through, right now, I'm in the middle of addressing it with Christmas Cart, a program where we pack gifts for Christmas for families that can't provide for their own kids in Scott County. Now, sometimes we think, well, that's not a big deal, but I remember being a home-based counselor and having families talk to me in September about we don't know how we're going to even give a single gift to our child this year. And so it really does alleviate some of that stress on that family and allow them to enjoy some of the fun stuff with Christmas. I also provide seeds in the spring for people to plant their own gardens. We have at different times made attempts at community gardens. We do a summer program of day camp. We do a variety of things that just allow kids, families, people to experience the goodness of life. There is a thrift store in Midway,
okay,
which is between Gate City and Dungannon. And it is really a clothing ministry. We do charge a little bit for the clothes that are there and the toys that are there. But it is always fun to go up on a Saturday morning when lots of people come to the Midway store and to watch people go through and find treasures and be so excited about finding those things while the kids are kind of sorting through the toys. And, people end up donating things like McDonald's toys and stuff, and those are in a free basket. So watching children go through and pick out their free toy for the day, it's really a fun experience and a community building experience.
One of the words that I'm trying to use is the word passion, and I'm trying to get people to tell me what their passion for ministry is. Why do you do the things that you do?
I have a passion for people, and I have a passion for a variety of kinds of people. I moved here from the Great Plains. You can tell that because I talk funny.
I wasn't going to say that.
But It has been delightful to meet the people of these mountains, to get to know them. I live actually in a fairly high poverty area, and so it's been fun to just go for walks with some of my neighbor kids and visit with them about school and learn what's important to them, and also learning those places where the ends aren't quite meeting, and figuring out if there's ways that we can help make those ends meet to make families work better and things go better for families.
For those of us that listen and are part of a local church, we know where our funding comes from. It comes from the offering on Sunday morning. How is your ministry funded?
Okay, Church and Community Ministry is a ministry of the General Board of Global Ministries. So in the Holston Conference, when you give a tithe, in other conferences, when you give your apportionment, a big part of the funding for a church and community worker to be present is through the tithe or the apportionment. Other funding happens, we put out appeals for funding, and churches are very generous about responding to those appeals for program.
So the from where I used to be the chairman of, I guess, the church and community worker. For the annual conference. To be honest with you, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what church and community workers do. I never quite, it never quite gelled with me. That's sort of one of the reasons I said you really need to put somebody else in here that maybe understands better. But the idea that we can have someone in our district that is, not tied to one church, that's not tied to the ministry of, say, my church, Trinity, or a church up in Norton, but is available to provide a caring presence throughout the entire district. That's a wonderful asset. How many other districts have this kind of opportunity? Because there's more than just you as a church and community worker in our annual conference.
Yes, there are 4 church and community workers in the annual conference. Brooke Atchley in the Tazewell district is also a district-wide church and community worker. Mark Stransky is with Project Crossroads in Marion, so he's more locally, more kind of that area. Marion,
Smith County, Virginia area.
Yeah. And then Linda Stransky is down at Jubilee, which is in Tennessee.
Is it Harrogate? No, it's not Harrogate. Sneedville, thank you.
Yes,
I remembered something from my meetings.
She's down in Sneedville, so it's a very local, but there's only one Methodist church in that county, and there's just a huge need in that area. So that's kind of the ministry that the 4 of us do in the Holston Conference.
So I sort of detect that all of those are sort of I would call an Appalachian-based sort of ministry. All of them are in Appalachian sort of counties with issues that the counties of Appalachia are facing in terms of poverty and jobs and everything. So it sounds like you are trying to make a positive impact in the lives of people.
Absolutely. And, and they're Appalachian because we're in the Holston Conference, too. When I was in Nebraska, I started about 10 years after the farm crisis of the 80s, and there it was a district-wide project, but it was very different because it related to farm issues and to Native American issues. And there are also church and community workers who are immigration attorneys or who are parish nurses or who do other kinds of educational ministries. So we really are a varied group.
A diverse group of people.
Yes.
But the key to all of them is you're there to help someone in some sort of situation. You're there to be the presence of Christ in a positive way to affect people's lives.
And also to help churches begin to get that. And that's kind of been a turning point with church and community ministry, is to really be intentional about not only it's not about what Koni does, it's about what the churches in the Big Stone Gap district do? At one time, I had a friend that used to say that he was a living, walking apportionment, and I like to think that the project is the living, walking apportionment, and the relationship between the church and the community is the living, walking apportionment.
Well, Koni, I just want to thank you for sharing with us today, and I may be back later to get an update on something special that maybe you're doing. I'd be glad to share that. So I'm going to pray for your ministry, and I hope the churches of our district and our annual conference will be praying for Koni's ministry as well as the ministries of our other church and community workers. And I hope you've just had a chance to learn a little bit about this important ministry. Any last words?
Thank you.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Come back for our next podcast.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Come back again and hear more podcasts.